Welcome, everyone. Today's live thought leader webinar is titled Practical AI and Workflow Automation for the Modern Healthcare Legal Team. Today's live thought leader webinar is brought to you by Streamline AI. The live webinar will last 60 minutes, and at the conclusion, there will be an opportunity for Q&A. To submit your questions, please use the Q&A feature on your Zoom window. Now, I will turn the presentation over to Kathy Zhu, co-founder and CEO of Streamline AI. Kathy?
Thank you so much, Kristen, and welcome everybody. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. As Kristen mentioned, I'm Kathy Zhu, co-founder and CEO of Streamline. I want to say, first of all, big thanks to AHLA for allowing us to sponsor this webinar today. I'm super excited to be here with Wendy Chow. I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment. I wanted to also say that Streamline, as well as myself, will be at AHLA's conference next week. So it'd be amazing if you wanted to stop by and say hi. And I'm going to turn it over to Wendy now to say hello.
Thanks, Kathy. This is Wendy Chow. I'm the general counsel at Cityblock Health. I've been practicing for, sounds crazy, but almost 20 years. And my last 7 has been at Cityblock. Cityblock is a health tech company that's focusing on delivering really high quality healthcare to Medicaid folks and folks that are duals. And we're mostly value-based. I am super excited to give this talk with Kathy because I am obsessive, as you will see, about process and about tech and what those things can do to help in-house practices do what they do better. So thanks, Kathy, for the opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you, Wendy. And just really quick background to myself, so you know a little bit about me and Streamline. So first of all, Streamline AI is an AI legal operating platform. It connects all aspects of legal work from the front door and how requests come into your team, matter management, collaboration to enable you and cross-functional partners to collaborate on a matter, and then very robust reporting so that you have the metrics that actually measure what your department is doing, where the bottlenecks are, what the output and efficiency looks like. And prior to Streamline, I actually spent a decade, actually over a decade, in legal practice. Most recently, before Streamline, I was the associate general counsel, head of commercial legal at DoorDash, where I built the global commercial legal function from scratch over the course of 4 years. With a legal team at that point when I joined was around 5 people, and when I left, the legal team was over 100. The company grew from about 2,000 employees to over 10,000. So that level of scale was what really was the inception for the aha moments, right? That birthed Streamline. Streamline came from the frustrations I personally experienced at that scale, mainly stemming from legal feeling like a black box to the business as well as to myself. So we're going to dive into a lot more about that, about how to operationalize your legal department with some of the insights that Wendy and I have through the course of our career. So before we get into the meat of things, Wendy, I'd love for you to very quickly kind of just set the stage for our audience on some of the very high level, the evolution, right, of your department. I know we're going to dig into this, but I think it's helpful for the audience just to kind of understand once you started to bring technology into your department, from a budgetary standpoint, what were some of the biggest changes that you saw?
Yeah, let me just start real quick, even before I got to Cityblock. So my last company before Cityblock was a huge not healthcare nonprofit, like 4 core businesses, 2B in revenue, um, 16,000 people, and we had 3 lawyers. And it was a 125-year-old company. It was just like swimming in technical legal debt, just couldn't find any contracts. That was the world that I was in. So when I came to Cityblock, I was sort of determined to do it differently. And I got hired. That was like my mindset coming in. Um and build it from scratch and get the opportunity to do that. And so I've been thinking about process from the day that I walked in the door, but tech has really changed our ability, like the level of what we can do, which has been really interesting. But yeah, so I got hired as the first lawyer. We were sub 100 people. This was 2019, pre-COVID, and then we grew to be 1,000 in just a couple years. So the scale, it wasn't DoorDash size, but there was sort of this like aggressive acceleration. And at our peak, the legal team was, I think, 11 lawyers. So it was way bigger than my last team because just we do value-based care. We were growing like crazy. They want everything to be innovative. Rules are constantly changing. And so, anyways, we were just up against it, and up against, even though we had a really good rep, like up against some serious budget constraints. I couldn't just get infinite headcount. I mean, to be honest, I had a really good sized team for the size company that we were. We needed it because of the complexity, but I couldn't just get infinite headcount. Outside counsel spend was gigantic, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, and the current rates are astronomical. So we were just running up against that. And as a startup company that is not nonprofit, the operating constraints and the operating discipline that you have to have with your budget there's a lot of pressure. And nonprofits face a different kind of pressure, which is also very real, right? So we had to do something because we couldn't just keep scaling with headcount and outside counsel spend. So we basically TLDR, and we'll get into it, is that over the course of a couple years, we made some significant process and tech investments, and we were able to bring our outside counsel spend down by 2 mil. And we have less lawyers on the team than we used to. Still a good sized team. We have more non-lawyers, and our company is like way bigger than it used to be. So that's the headline, but we were able to do that with technology. So,
Perfect. That's
yeah.
exactly what I wanted everybody to hear, because really what we're going to uncover is not only how did Wendy accomplish something that I think is quite extraordinary, but also distilling that into a three-tier roadmap, right? So that you can all walk away with an understanding of how to implement something like that for your own teams. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to structure the next, 50 minutes, try to save around 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, but we'll dive into these four topics. We'll set the stage first for the problem that we're talking about, which, based on our research, based on all of our surveys, the majority of legal departments are living in the old world, trying to transition into the new world, right? And then we'll talk about what the new AI operating model looks like. We'll introduce that three-tier AI roadmap that I mentioned. Has three different foundational AI product categories that Wendy's actually brought into her team that we both recommend all teams to consider to really supercharge the way that your teams are operating. And then if we have time, we'll dig into some of the benchmark survey results from our AI maturity index so that you can see where your team stacks up. And I'll also share a QR code at the end that you can use to take our AI maturity survey if you're interested in finding out more about where your team lands. Okay, so first, let's get started with a quick poll to get some context into where all of you are today in terms of budgets that you can actually use to bring on AI tools. So you'll see, different options are, yes, you have budget earmarked specifically for the legal team to bring on these tools, or maybe you have a single budget that covers everything. I've seen a lot of teams living in this world, right? Everything from outside counsel to software. You can decide how you want to allocate that. Or maybe, your budget is actually very, very limited, right? And you have to make a business case every single time you want to bring on a new tool. And sometimes there's actually a company-wide AI budget that you can apply for. So kind of really curious to see where you are on that. And Wendy, where is your team? Where's Cityblock in terms of that?
We have budget for AI. We are a health tech company, so it's our mandate a little bit, to be tech forward. But I've also just been relentlessly beating the drum on this, and so they've heard me, and so we've gotten it's not a large budget, by the way, but we've gotten a small budget to like do our own experiments and try out some different tools.
And clearly you don't need a huge one,
You
is what
don't.
you've proven, right?
I really don't think that you do.
Yeah, you don't need.
Especially while the tech is evolving so much, I really think about it like experimentation. I'm not locking us into like multi-year contracts. So,
So what I've seen from the results is really interesting, Wendy. About 14% of the audience has budget that's earmarked for AI tools. So
Mhm.
definitely not by any stretch of the imagination the majority. I think that's the minority there. And the about, I would say, almost half of the audience are saying that their budget for tooling is very limited and they have to make a business case for every single new tool they bring on. So that's good for you and I to be aware of as we go through this webinar. And then about 32% say that they have a single budget that they can then allocate. So really interesting. We'll think about, and touch on maybe how you can make a case, right? And the ROI for bringing on these tools. Okay, so on this slide, we're showing three of the biggest reoccurring frustrations that we've seen show up for in-house legal teams. Rising request volumes, increased demand for speed, and then, of course, constantly always budget constraints. Wendy, which of these for you hits the closest at Cityblock?
Yeah, asking which one is like is funny, right? Because it's honestly all of them, and I think that's something that everyone gets what we're trying to do with this slide, right? It's all of them, and then we couldn't even list all of our aggregate frustrations on one slide, and I bet you that it doesn't matter what size company that people are at here. We all share that. We could just write them on a note card and compare, and we would have the same frustrations, right? It's increasing volume, increasing speed, increasing complexity. Healthcare rules are constantly changing. I mean, I can't imagine people that are in an industry where their rules don't change that much. I'm like, what is that like? So, but in the healthcare world, like it's the different kinds of regulatory schemes you're up against. Anyways, you guys get it. So I would say it's all of these, and you are very constrained by budget. Even if you have even if you feel like I'm well budgeted today, which I've heard no GC say ever. The company is always growing and changing and wanting to innovate, and there's just always more. You always need more resource than you have. I really feel like most people are up against that.
Yeah, the image that comes to mind for me is being asked to sprint uphill and they're weighing you down with sandbags and they keep weighing you down with more sandbags and asking, why aren't you going faster? It's like this
Yeah.
like impossible situation. But I think what I realized when I was facing this at DoorDash is that there's something structural that's actually happening here. And if you can actually understand the root of what causes this, it's actually solvable. So let's get into that. But first, let's talk about the old operating model. This is kind of the symptom, what we just described, right? Are different symptoms of that old model of operating, which is legal is a high access service center, right? All day long, people are lining up outside our proverbial door and they're just throwing things at us. And every now and again, somebody starts to yell because they're not getting what they need fast enough. And then we react, right? We're constantly in that mode of just reacting. It's very, very transactional. Often there's actually not enough prioritization that even happens. There's very little actually looking at everything you're doing and picking what the most important thing is because of all the yelling and all the fires. So you're just constantly in a mode of trying to figure out which fire is burning, the hottest and trying to deal with that. But it, of course, means that, you know, you're not actually able to work on the thing that drives the most innovation for the business or necessarily the thing that's actually going to help the company move forward in the most meaningful way. And then when volume rises reactively, what do we do? The only thing we feel like we can do is to add more headcount. Right? Or maybe, pass things off to outside counsel. So I'd love, Wendy, for you to share with us, how did Cityblock look when you first arrived vis-a-vis this kind of model? Is this what you were seeing? What was the before like when you founded the legal team?
Yeah, this is exactly how we practiced for a while. Even though, I was talking about my last company and this company, I would say the difference in my last company and this company, although in the beginning, either way, it was in this operating model, is that at this company, we did have a lot of process from the start and we had some tools. And so the team was very well respected, which I think is what the goal of all in-house counsel. You want to, this whole quote unquote seat at the table, you want to be involved in all the major decisions. We were. But then there's this phrase in Chinese, it's like the good horse gets ridden. And so then it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy the other way, right? Like you have a good rep and then everybody wants your service and you're getting, even if you're getting to touch really um high value work, there's still the proliferation of that just generates and it sort of like creates itself. And so we were just in this world where people really wanted to work with us, and that was great. But everything was a required a lawyer to touch it or required a human to touch it and white glove service it for them. And that is very hard to scale, very hard to scale.
Totally. And along the lines of what you're saying, Wendy, what I've seen is that this kind of reactive operating model is also very harmful to morale and productivity, right? Because you have to touch everything, you're constantly also getting interrupted throughout your day. You're working on something that requires deep thinking, and someone's interrupting you about an NDA, someone's interrupting you about a vendor contract, which would drive me absolutely bananas, but you can't ignore it. And so you're working as hard as you can, um, and ultimately still getting blamed. That eventually becomes very emotionally taxing and exhausting. And that becomes a drag on your legal team as well. So let's get out of the old world of operating. Not surprisingly, teams eventually hit a wall, and something has to give when the request volume rises. So we already talked about, we reactively try to add more headcount, or we start engaging outside counsel. And then that third option that you see on the slide, unfortunately, I see too many legal teams having no choice but to do that, which is to grit your teeth and just try to work harder, just try to push through it. Um, Wendy, I know you've tried all of these options. Would love to hear, why each one ultimately failed you and your team.
Yeah. I mean, failed is strong, but it wasn't like we couldn't keep up, right? I mean, came in thinking it'll be great if I can hire one lawyer my first year here. I was actually, ironically, in the beginning getting pressured to hire more lawyers because they were like, we're growing so fast, you need to be able to keep up. So for a little while, I had the headcount that I needed for a while, and I had a huge outside counsel budget. But then again, there comes a point in every business where they start looking at the operating costs, right? Things go through cycles. And then they're like, why is your headcount so big? You're like, because you all needed me to do so many things, ask me to do less things and my headcount can be smaller, right? These are the conversations that everybody has. And outside counsel's 2K an hour now, which is a lot, separate from whether that price is justified or not, objectively, that is a lot of money. It means that we couldn't keep using our outside counsel as an overage dumping, I mean, not dumping, but like an overage at flow, right? Like that's just not sustainable at 2K an hour. And of course, there are mid-sized firms and solo practitioners for sure, but in aggregate, we had to do something about our outside counsel. So we were forced to to acknowledge the constraints that exist and try to design something differently within those constraints. And I think these constraints are the same for everybody. So it's just kind of like what you were saying before, like you just have to accept that these are the constraints and figure out how to design it a different way, right? Or keep
Totally.
feeling like you're behind, which I didn't want to keep feeling that way.
So what's been really interesting for me to observe, is how AI has also intensified the
Yeah.
situation for a lot of different companies. I'm curious if this is also the case for healthcare companies, because I'm seeing this in a big, big way for tech, especially, where the business world is just expecting AI to come in and solve all their problems, completely accelerate business velocity, and as a result, I think the expectation is that headcount is going to come down. So it's never been harder to actually get headcount than it is now. They're expecting expenses to come down too, because you can just have AI come in and solve it all. But the reality is, I've actually never seen legal teams inundated with more work, right? Because the pace of business has accelerated. There are now even more contracts to review. There are more products to ship, more campaigns to run. So I think we're living in this world, but it's actually even more intensified than before. And so, you know, AI is an amazing thing, right? We're talking about that today. We're talking about what you can do to leverage it, but I think it's no longer an option because of what's going on the business side, right? And everything that's happening there.
Yeah, and I will just put a note for healthcare lawyers. We have yet another, I mean, there's lots of ways that AI is intensifying our work, but there's another layer for healthcare lawyers, which is we need to deal with the actual consequences of using AI. There's like PHI concerns of putting PHI and the whole business is like wanting what they want on AI, and then we have to deal with that. There's also like, how are we thinking about using AI with members? And so there's also just generation of more work related to our subject matter area, right? Because of AI. So this, I mean, it's just this and then some. So
Totally. Yep. Complexities gone up, right? Very, very significantly. Okay, so that's why I'm so excited to talk about the new AI operating model for legal teams. And before we dive into the tech and all the AI solutions that Wendy and I are going to recommend, we need to set the stage for all of you on what we mean by this new AI operating model. It's about honing in on the core operational data for the legal team and how you use systems to then capture and structure that data so that eventually you can get to the holy grail, which is enabling self-service at scale. And don't worry, we're going to talk about what that means and what that looks like. But first, we need to start with unpacking what this core operational data actually really means. So Wendy, please help us and help the audience to get a better grasp on this concept.
sure. And I just do want to say, Kathy said this. We're using a lot of current buzzy words that are in the modern parlance, but I need everything broken down to small bits for myself. And so we're going to do that, right? We're going to talk about what is an operating model? What does it mean to structure data? Blah, blah. We're going to talk about all those things, right? So just want to set the stage on that. Yeah. So what I would say is the way that I've been talking to my team about how to organize our work and how to maximize utility of tools, whether they're AI or otherwise, and where our industry is going, which I don't have a crystal ball, but I think about this constantly, so I can at least see to 6 months from now, or a year from now. And the way that I've been helping them understand it is I've been saying to them, I want you to think about each one of our answers like it's a piece of data. I want you to think about all the answers that we give, like that is legal data. Like we are all very familiar with PHI and the power and the sensitivity of PHI and the preciousness of PHI as health lawyers and also like what you can do with huge large swaths of PHI, right? And that's why we have to protect it, right? So I think everyone's very versant in the modern world that data at scale is very powerful and you can do a lot of things with it. But lawyers don't think about their work like that, right? And I'm like, but that is like each answer that we generate is like a little bit of data. It's like a little piece of data, right? And so generally the way that lawyers work, and I've been practicing this way for my whole career, is that little piece of data is just a random piece of data that sits somewhere in your email or in Slack. Maybe if you're lucky, it sits in a policy that you can look at again or whatever, return back to. Or maybe it's in a memo, but it's these like little disparate pieces of data that sit in a lot of different places. And because of that, you can't really do that much interesting with it because it's not structured. It's not what you didn't, and we didn't structure it so that you can do stuff with it, right? But think about what other teams do with big data sets, right? They can run reports on them. They can analyze them for um, more insights. They can structure it in a way that other teams can self-service and use that and query that data set so they can get something out of it. You don't really see these days, like your engineering team is not, or your actuary team is not the central source of giving everybody in the company analytics on your big data sets. Like they're not. And so they're structuring the data in a way that lots of people, in an organized way, the key people that are authorized can query that data themselves and get insights from it, right? But we don't think about structuring legal answers this way. But it is like each piece of answer that we give is so precious. It took tons of legal knowledge or outside counsel or expertise or hard thinking. And I want us to compile and organize those nuggets so that we can do something interesting with them. Does that make sense?
Such a critical, absolutely. And I really want to like underline, underscore this so many times because it is a reframe for how we've historically thought about legal data. I think the way that legal technology has historically been focused, and also, the operators is thinking about legal data much more in terms of probably just contracts, actually, right? Like what is the renewal date? That's a piece of data, right? But what Wendy and I are saying is actually no, that misses so much of what we're actually doing day to day, which is giving all that guidance, giving all that counsel. So this is a shift in our thinking. And the basis for the new model is rethinking the legal department as actually a body of knowledge, right? And what you can then do is leverage systems and tooling to, as Wendy said, structure all of that historical knowledge, all that context, all the decisions so that you can access them again downstream, even if those individuals are no longer on your team. Let's say they've gone somewhere else, right? You don't have to dig through their emails. You don't have to figure out what it is that they opined on. And most of what we do day to day, if you think about it truly, it's not most of it is not novel issues, right? It's actually rehashing a lot of this stuff that we've done already. I call them FAQs almost, right? How do I find this? What does this policy mean, right? Is this compliant? And so, in order to really make that self-serve, um, you have to structure that information, but it also results then in unlocking the results that Wendy's talking about, which is actually being able to scale without headcount, reducing outside counsel spend, so that you have your team working on truly the high value novel problems. Along these lines, Wendy, I'd love it if you can also unpack for the audience this idea of a legal runbook, because I've heard you talk about this. And when I heard about it alongside other attorneys, we were all like, oh my gosh, this is revolutionary. Please tell us how you came up with this idea of a legal runbook, how you implemented this, how does this work? This is such a powerful tool.
Yeah, it's funny because it's so powerful, but it's so simple. And when you hear it, you'll be like, "Whoa, why didn't I think of that?" And I didn't, all credit to my deputy, Kamika Waters. I just need to shout her out. I didn't come up with it. It was her brilliant brainchild. I have some really creative lawyers on my team. So the run book at Cityblock is a really simple concept, and this requires no technology. This lives in a Word document for us. It is just basically for every major position that we take, not every single little question, right? But for every major position that took research and that maybe you would do a memo to file on if it was very important, or you put it in a policy, we put all of those positions into one document called the run book. It's attorney-client privileged, it's only for the lawyers, and we flesh out exactly all the source documents that we used, all the citations, what our position was, and then we also link any policies that or presentations or any guidance, major pieces of guidance, not just like an email that came out of this position, so that we have a catalog and history of the major positions that we've taken in an organized way. You guys are all doing this in disparate places, and all I'm saying is put it in a Word doc, right? And maintain it. That way, if you need to look back and, we all go through this. 2 years ago, there was that big question that took up my whole June, and now I can barely remember what it even is, but I know that we spent a bunch of money on outside counsel and a bunch of our time, and we wrote some giant memo to file, and we landed it. Great. What was that thing? And not only, even if you find that email, you're like, ooh, but I know we did a deck on this to the business team or the finance team. So it's all in one place, right? And I will never ever live without this thing ever again. So that's just like one, even a non-technical way of thinking about gathering and structuring your data, right? Which doesn't have to be fancy. It's just like gathering and structuring your answers that you're giving in a more organized way, right? So we're obsessed with it, and you can hear me use that word a lot because I like think about these things constantly. But when Kamika told me about this, I was like, yes. And also, I think the lawyers here will appreciate this. we're always pushing, I'm always pushing our team to give guidance in a business friendly way, right? Like no footnotes, no citations. You need to use Dex, you need to use Excel, you need to speak their language. This is from lawyers to lawyers. You can use your Times New Roman font. You can do all the citations that you want. You can write legalese. It's so great. It's like a present to yourself, right? Because even if you gave guidance and you could find that deck later, it's a very pared down version of all the work that you did. And you want to be able to look at your source information, right? For, wait, but what was that law? And has that law changed? Or I want to refresh myself on that analysis. And it's like a beautiful little place where lawyers can just be pure and be ourselves, and we don't have to water it down at all, you know?
So it's so amazing. And it really gets to the heart of what we're here to talk about, which is actually centralizing, capturing all of that information in a single place. So the only thing to not do is write it on a yellow legal pad. You want it in a format that you can actually all get into with your team. But okay, I'm really excited. We're about to get closer now to talking about the three-tier AI roadmap. But before we do that, let's quickly do this poll to benchmark the room. So where are you with your AI adoption today? How would you rate your team's AI maturity? Are you experienced? Um, Basically, you could be here instead of me and Wendy running this webinar. Are you more on the moderate side of things? You're starting to play around with AI. You're experimenting with it. Are you nascent? Are you thinking about it, or are you avoidant? AI scares me. Don't let the bots take over. Let's do this quickly. And then, okay, cool. Let's see where you are. So, okay, Wendy, this is amazing. 0% of our audience think that they're experienced, that they could be running this webinar. I also think that lawyers are very humble. And that's why the answer was that way. Vast majority, 81% are starting to play around with it. Only 3% are avoidant. So this is very, very promising. I think we're really talking to a group of people that are very interested in finding out more. So this is great.
And to the avoidant people, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate it's anonymous, but I appreciate your honesty because it's good to know where you are and you're here listening. So I presume it means you're somewhat curious, right? So anyways, appreciate the honesty of the people that said that they were don't want the bots to take over. I get it.
I agree. And by the way, that's not what we're here about at all. Not
Yeah.
trying to take over.
Yeah.
Okay, so Wendy, this was such an illuminating picture when I saw it. And I know you were alluding to that at the very start of this webinar in terms of talking about the transformation your team's gone through. But nothing speaks louder than numbers and data. So I'd love for you to actually walk the audience through what we're looking at here on this slide.
Yeah, I'm just all about if you say something, you have to back it up with actual facts, right? And so this is without giving away like Cityblock confidential information. I tried to pull a slide together that sort of walks you through the journey of, because you can take any specific thing and paint a picture, but it's actually really the holistic picture of our spend vis-a-vis the company growth over the last few years, right? So I X'd out the AR, but you can just we have grown a lot from 2022 to 2026. Our ARR is way bigger. So our revenue is way bigger than it was in 2022. We call our patients members. Our member count went from 90,000 to 130,000. We had our main because we're value based. Our main revenue generation is through partners partnerships with payers, right? And so we started with 8, we have 13, right? We ended 2025 with 13, we have 15. That's only continuing to grow. We're still only halfway through the year. But look at the outside counsel spend number, right? So like the company's going up and to the right as far as how big we are in our revenue and our complexity with partners and our members. But our outside counsel spend is going down, right? It's going from 3.7 this year. And I keep being like, guys, this is not incentivizing me at all to like be efficient. You're just continuing to take my budget, but fine, we made it work, But if you look at our tech platform spend, and I know it's a lot of X's and zeros, so I'll just walk you through it. Anywhere you see an X means we're spending money on that tool, and we were using that tool that year. Zero means we weren't using that tool at all, right? So in 2022, we were still spending a bunch of money, but only on three tools. Bright Flag, which is a tool to help you manage your outside counsel invoicing. Um, Westlaw, and Ironclad, which is a contract management tool, right? So we were spending 121K on just these three tools and getting some utility, but not the kind of utility that I'm talking about to like bring down spend and make things more efficient and live in this new world, right? 23 through 25, and I would say even now is still experimentation. You see that we've been adding tools, right? We're like in 2025, we're using a little bit or a lot of each one of these tools. But what you don't see underneath, because I didn't want to give away people's proprietary, costs or whatever, like our Westlaw spend in 22 was very high. Our Westlaw spend in 25, even though we were still spending on Westlaw just a little bit, way lower, right? And we repurposed those dollars to experiment with other things. So to the extent for the folks that said that they're having a hard time getting budget, this is one way I originally got budget is I was like, fine, don't give me any more dollars, but let me do what I want to do with the dollars that I do have, right? And so we experimented with using Bloomberg instead of, they have a tool that's like Westlaw now. And so but it's cheaper. So we were like, can we use Bloomberg instead of Westlaw? And then that savings, I invest in a different tool, but we didn't get rid of Westlaw like entirely in case there was a couple attorneys that felt really passionate about their Westlaw and wanted to completely just ask them to do something else, right? But we've been experimenting. And so in 25, funny enough, we were using way more tools, but we were spending less money. And then because of the experiments that we've run, we know what works. We're able to clearly demonstrate the ROI now. And so now, and the company's in a place where they're like, yeah, use the tools we got. It's cool. And so I was able to get more. And if you look at it, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the savings that we've generated, right? And so it's easier to make the argument that way, right? Of like, and if you talk to finance about it, like it's an experiment, it's a pilot, we're just talking about it for 1 year and blah, blah, blah. I found that helps ease the wallet a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't feel like it's an entire commitment. They understand the world is moving in this direction and people need to, in their mind, they see dollar sign efficiencies and you're talking about a pilot to help achieve that, right? Without committing to specifics, but and then we've gotten into a place where people really see the ROI, and so they're much more open to investing now. And that's how we got there. And then headcount, this is not like I don't have 15 lawyers now. I have 7 lawyers and 5 non-lawyers. But we've actually gone down in the number of lawyers that we had from starting from 22. So I wanted to use um numbers, even though I hate math and numbers, but I wanted to show with numbers the story of our spend, right?
It's really, really compelling to hear how you went about that, Wendy. I mean, we can probably spend an entire webinar just talking about, honestly, how to structure this, how to think creatively and outside the box and get headcount and not headcount, sorry, how to get budget allocated for these different tools. But I think one of the key things I'm hearing from you is not all these dollars are equal. Like if you invest in some of these tools, you actually end up driving more output and more efficiency, and you get a lot more return. And interestingly for us, what we generally see is customers are signing for 1 year, exactly as you're saying, to prove it out. And then usually they lock in a multi-year renewal after that, once they're able to actually get the ROI numbers, right? So, okay, really excited to dig into this and spend some time here. So this is a 3-tiered AI roadmap on a single slide. And what you see is the first step is legal assistance as the entry point. It's followed by an operating platform. And for some reason, I don't know why this is happening. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. I'm like, where did that go?
That's the key button. That's the key
exactly.
graphic that we need. Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
So the operating platform is that system that Wendy and I have been talking about, is structure and capture everything. And then the third is self-service knowledge. So let's break this down. I'm going to have Wendy walk us through each of these different steps and how she thinks about them for her team.
Yeah. So do you want me to just do a high level, Kathy, and then we'll go into each? Yeah. So legal assistant. So this is like we're in the world of AI now, right? Everything we talked about is like why should you get into the world of AI? And now we're in the world of AI. But that what does that mean, right? And there's people are talking about Claude and GC.ai and platforms and self-serve. Like what does all that mean? So just to drill it all down. If you're in the category of nascent experimentation or afraid, I would encourage you to start with thinking about AI as a legal assistant, right? This is very um, accessible as a first step. You still have 1,000 things to do, and AI is just helping you do those 1,000 things faster and better and with more fidelity. 100%, it goes without saying, you have to double check it 100%, and you have to do the right prompt. But even if you had a baby attorney or an intern, you would have to check their work, right? So it's not different than that. That's not, I think about it that way. I'm still responsible for the output, or my team is still responsible for the output, and I drill that into them. But it's not different than doing it manually. We're still responsible for the output, and we still have to check the work, right? And so, but this is like, basically having a junior person in your pocket that never gets tired, and can help you do things with at a very precise level, right? So I think about this as like GC.ai or Claude or the LLMs, like they can just you put it, you're like, hey, check the contract for me for these 5 things, and it will check the contract for these 5 things, right? Or run one thing we've been doing is we'll put a contract in and we'll say check for any broken logic loops, right? So section 7 points to section 4.7. 4.7 is missing because you deleted it in the last red line, right? It's 11 o'clock. You're trying to get the deal done and try to get the red line back to the other side. The AI is going to be way better at doing that than I'm going to do it. And then we check every single thing they give us for sure. But it helps you do your work faster, right? Or better, higher fidelity. But you still have 1,000 things to do, and that doesn't change. AI operating platform and self-service knowledge starts to get into a world where you don't have 1,000 things to do anymore. Like especially in path in box 3, you have I don't know what number, 100 really important things to do that are very complex. And then everything else, you've already answered that once, and the business is self-servicing on that information. But you are focusing on the top 50, 100, whatever. And so is your team, not just you as if you're a leader, or whatever. Um, AI operating platform is the middle ground to get there, right? It's when we talk about collecting, not just structuring data, but just even capturing it. Even if you don't structure it well, just is there one place where most of your work is going, right? Because if you don't have this, then you're really like all of your good, amazing data is in Slack or it's in Teams or it's in email, right? And so having one place where you capture your work, where you work and you capture your work is the middle step, right? And that helps you get to step 3, which we can talk about. So that's just the overview.
Super helpful, Wendy. And there's so much, by the way, in the AI operating platform category that, and again, like this is what Streamline is all about. So we're going to unpack that in the following slide. But essentially, again, like going back to everything that we started out talking about, which is where are we wasting so much of our time? Where are we spending so much of our time, right? It's addressing and fielding all of the repetitive, constantly interrupting, frequently asked types of questions. And the only way that you can move to a world that is truly self-serve, which is that third step, that's the holy grail, right? That Wendy and I are dreaming about, is if you truly can get to a place where you are capturing and structuring and making all of that repetitive work into a database. So that's what the step 2 is all about. And so, okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more, and we're going to dive into that in the next slide. But just for a moment, let's talk about the self-serve knowledge holy grail, because I know, Wendy, like you also think a lot about this as well. To me, this is right now the edge of technology. How do you think about this from a user or a customer perspective? And then I'll share a little bit about how I look at that as a founder.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick because I want to spend a good juicy amount of time on the operating platform. But this is coming for us whether we like it or not. This is already happening, right? Where businesses are putting questions into ChatGPT, sanctioned or not, and or their enterprise Claude, even if it's sanctioned, and asking it questions. And the blatantly sometimes telling you, oh, that's interesting that you gave me this answer. Claude agrees with you. We literally had a leader tell me that the other day. We're like, great, good that Claude agrees with us because we're right, Anyways, but this is happening, right? Businesses are wanting to use these tools to get immediate, fast answers. So that's happening whether we like it or not. What I want to do is live in a world where I design the way that they interface with those answers and they are able to self-service but get answers that we gave them, that we approved, that we moderated. So they still get the self-service experience, but we get to control the content and the accuracy of those answers. So that's that world. But honestly, the tech isn't there yet. Like the tech is starting to bump up against this, of companies that are trying to do this or taking their tool and trying to do it. But I mean, we could spend a whole hour talking about like what breaks. And and again, why I'm obsessed with number two is because how organized your data has to be, even if the system works to give businesses teams that experience, the way that your data has to be structured in order for the machine to capitalize on it is very hard. And so even for a team like mine, which I think is fairly organized, it's our data is like not structured enough. So anyways, I think this is the edge, but this is where we're going. I really feel strongly this is where we're going.
100% agree. And the gap right now is the context. So what we've been able to accomplish in Streamline is you can upload your knowledge documents, like Wendy's saying, and our AI will read the knowledge documents and it'll serve the answers as back to the business based on what the business is asking about. But the future state and what we're building towards actively right now is to actually gather all of the responses from our platform, and we'll talk about what this looks like. And Wendy has some screenshots she can even show you of her Streamline instance and what she's doing in it. Is to gather all of the responses together with the context so that you don't actually have to update or manage your knowledge base that you're uploading into Streamline. And instead, it's just got all of it there in real time. And I think that requires a level of sophistication with context graphs. And that's where the technology is going. But to get to that world again, you need to start with the right foundation, which is that AI operating platform. So let's dig into this a bit further. And by the way, Wendy, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so we can actually perhaps just spend the rest of the time
Yep.
really digging into this and your screenshots.
Great.
So tell us how you're deploying Streamline at Cityblock, the before and the after, and why you decided to choose us in the first place.
Yeah, I want to demystify what an operating platform is because I am not a techie person. Like, what is an operating platform? An operating platform is just a tool that is I think of an operating platform as the main tool that you're using to do your work, to like organize your work and to work within, right? Versus I don't think of a CLM as an operating platform, right? A CLM does a very, very specific thing for us, which helps us manage our contracts. That's not the majority of our work, right? Or Claude is not an operating platform. Like I use Claude in very specific ways. An operating platform is like the main tool you use to house and manage your work, right? So that's what an operating platform is. The reason why we chose, I mean, it's a long story on why we chose Streamline, but the quick and dirty is that a couple years ago, as you all know, legal tech has been proliferating and that industry has exploded and the quality of tools is way higher. And so I went out to be like, okay, we're going to experiment with some new tools. What should we do? We had a lot of different problems we were solving for. One of them was intake and workflow and collaboration. We were using the IT team's ticketing system, which was just not, you guys know it's not good for lawyers. It doesn't work the way lawyers work. And so um, I was like, I'll just choose whatever tool can solve one of these problems. And we decided to choose Streamline because out of all the ones we demoed, and we actually did demo Harvey at the time. Out of all the ones we demoed, it was the most beautiful, easiest to use, and the one that I felt like thought the way that lawyers think. So when I used it, I was like, oh, a lawyer designed this. I didn't know Kathy at the time, but I was like, oh, a lawyer designed this because this is the way that my brain works. And I have not found another tool that gives me that experience. So that was the original way that we were using Streamline, and we onboarded it and like It's the first vendor to like not break my heart, which is why I'm even down to do webinars with Kathy. But because I have a saying that every vendor will break your heart, which is anyways. But in the beginning, we were using it for those purposes: intake, workflow. I'll show you in a couple of screenshots, but like you can, if you wanted to, you could see what your whole team is working on, right? And you could dive into tickets and get and without even bothering them, right? Um, it's like a great way to work inside a system and to capture all that knowledge. That was the original reason. Now what we're doing is it's my way of capturing knowledge until the tech is gets better and I can do the self-service world. Um, B, there's a ton of automation you can do within Streamline that we've figured out. Because if you want to use it in very simple ways, it does that beautifully. But there's all these like really cool ways that you can use it to. I know I sound like I'm just working for Kathy, but I'm just obsessed with it because we've done a lot of stuff with it. There's ways you can use it to automate your work, like your conflict of interest process, right? Or health lawyers will appreciate this. We ran a really complex process through Streamline that we took out of being manual, which is, the complicated rules that you have about gift giving to patients. There's all these exceptions of how you can do it, but they're very regulated, and we, because we're value-based, have to do that at scale, but it's extremely tricky. And you have to have all these pieces in order to give somebody something for free. It has to be medically necessary. It has to, you have to, blah, blah, blah. You have to meet all the checkboxes. That was a very manual compliance process that we took and we were like, let's see if we can automate this and streamline. And with pretty complicated question architecture, we were able to put it in and it took it from a 30-hour-a-week situation to a 5-hour-a-week situation. And we can run reports on it now. Like if I ever got audited or investigated from the government, I would feel really confident like, oh, but we can run reports. We can show you exactly the yes, no, what gets approved in a way that we never could before. And we're trying to be as compliant as possible. And so, anyways, there's just lots of automation you can do within Streamline that we didn't realize in the beginning. And that's what we're doing with it now that I'm really excited about. So that's what I say. That's what I mean when I say an operating system, right? A system that helps you do all your work.
That's awesome. I love the way that you just described that. Wendy, would you mind opening, or not opening, but let's actually, sorry, I'm controlling this. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go into some of the screenshots so that you can actually share with us what we're looking at. And it's always helpful when we're talking about technology to show people, I think, examples of what this looks like in practice.
Yeah, so this is the main dashboard, right? And there's only, I mean, it cuts off. You can keep scrolling down, but it's like these are all like say hello to the people that are all on my team, right? Monica, Kamika, whatever. And there's nothing proprietary here, but this is like each one of these is a request, right? These are tickets. And so I can filter by, this is just one flat screen, but you can filter by, if you wanted to see all the tickets that Monica is working on right now, you could do that. If you wanted to see all the things I assigned to one person, you could do that. If you wanted to see all the things I assigned to the whole team or things that the team has assigned to me, you can filter by all those different ways, right? And I will say the search feature you guys don't advertise this, but the search feature in Streamline is crazy good. Like I asked them, like, who do you guys have working on your search? Because it's way better than email. Anyways, so this is the main page. This is my dashboard, right? And do you want to flip to the next?
I will, but I just want to add anecdotally about the search feature. So my co-founder was the senior PM at Google, working on the predecessor to Gemini. So that
Makes
probably
so much
explains
sense.
why.
Yep. I'm like, why is your search feature so good? Anyways, okay, so this is like I'm inside a ticket now, right? I'm inside a ticket and we have customized the left side. A lot of this is standard and a lot of it is custom, but it's like Gaty is the one on my team that's assigned. I assigned it. This could be a business person, right? Not necessarily legal team. What's the status? Is it in a review? Are we waiting on somebody? Is it completed? Who you can have people follow the ticket, to like they just want to like ride along. It's like a CC kind of. And then on the left side, we put in certain gates about like if we have SLAs and we put in certain gates about if you want an exception, like an ELT person has to approve that, blah, blah, blah. So the left side is kind of customized for how we work. And the right side is there's a collaboration hub. You can collaborate just behind the scenes with your legal team and say like, hi, that answer doesn't make sense. Can you rewrite it? Or they didn't ask this, but I have this other context, blah, blah. And only the legal team sees it, right? So then if you want to go to the next slide.
I just want to also point out a couple of things. So you can see there's an AI summarize request. We're building, and this is available, AI functionality in the request details so that the AI can tell you who it's waiting on right now. What do you need to do to move it forward? What is a summary? Let's say this has gone on for a year. What is a quick snapshot of what's happened, right? And you can actually also use AI to read the emails that you're getting, and the AI will actually do a back and forth with the business to collect all the context so that you don't have to, because we waste way too much time doing that. So that's our AI email agent product that actually helps you to convert emails into requests so you don't have to manually fill out a form. So a couple of examples of how AI works in our system.
Yeah. And we use that. Most people are trained, most of the business is trained in like Streamline, and so they use it, but some people just they want to be able to email something. And so we're like, that's fine. You could just email it. This is the bottom half of that screen, but it's, this was my request to Gaty. I put it in the left side. There's a form that actually drops that you fill out and then this populates, but you can see all the back and forth of what happened on the right side, right? And also, again, we have SLAs, and so we give it like we size the project and then we give the business owner, like, based on the size of this project, this is how long we think it's gonna take, whatever. And on the back end, all of this data is being collected so you can generate reports, right? You can say, what are we meeting our SLAs, generally speaking? Who has the most work that's like, they're falling over? Who's doing the most tickets? Or, there's lots of different ways you can query it to do reporting. So.
And we also have an AI overlay now into reporting. So it can actually distill and pull out, not just like you're looking at all these great charts and all the data, but it can actually tell you the insights. What is the data actually telling me? Where are the inefficiencies and bottlenecks? How many more people maybe do I need to hire? So all different examples of how AI's very much embedded into different aspects of the product. But the key, I think, is still the focus on solving a core problem, right? Core pain point that you're experiencing. So I know we're coming up on time. We only have a few minutes left. I wonder, Wendy, do you think it's helpful to touch on Claude, or should we just summarize our presentation today?
I'll do 30 seconds on Claude, right?
Okay.
Which is like, if you're nowhere, if all this feels overwhelming and you just want to get started and you have no budget, but you have Claude or Copilot or something that your company's giving you, by all means, play with it, right? Like, play with it. That's a great place to start. It's the tier one that I was talking about. But people have been asking me like, well, why are you using all these tools when you can just use Claude? And either they're doing something that I don't understand. I mean, I'm like, but the amount of work that I would have to, even if Claude could do it, the amount of work that I would have to do to get Claude to replicate a system like Streamline or something that somebody's building for us just doesn't make sense. Like, I coded in Claude a little to-do list for myself. Like, that's custom. I'm on version 28 and it has 5 features in it. Like, it just doesn't, you have to think about where to put your time, right? Claude is amazing. Claude and Claude-like tools are amazing for certain things. But like, I want a system that I don't have to design or run or maintain that is doing a lot more for me. Maybe Claude will get there, but it's not there today, So that's my
And
two
it's
cents.
not totally, and it's not set up and it's by its nature to be great for team-based collaboration work, right?
Yeah,
To actually
yeah,
orchestrate a whole bunch of different downstream actions.
yeah.
So
It's just
we
apples and oranges,
two different,
Yeah,
two different
really
steps,
different things. Yeah.
right? And that's why we broke it out into two different things on that framework. Okay, we don't have time to go into the depth of this, but I do want to share this QR code for you all so that you can, it's only 10 questions, but please scan this on your phone to take our AI maturity survey, AI maturity assessment. Once you do that, you're going to actually receive a free benchmark score so that you see where you fall based on all the people that took it, and then what our recommended next steps are. So that should hopefully also be very illuminating for all of you if you want to take the 5 minutes to take that survey. Josh is also sharing a link in the chat. But we just want to end on some next steps here for you all. I don't see any other questions, and you answered, Wendy, that one question about Harvey. So let's just quickly go through what the practical next steps are. Do you want to
Yeah.
go through that, Wendy? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just basically like even if you're scared or even if you're nascent, just play around with it. The most biggest experts in the world are 1 year ahead of you, max. Like that is the people that are most expert in the world. And I bet if you just play with it in 2 weeks, you're gonna feel confident. And then you can decide how you want to use it, right? But just like don't shy away from it. And then, once you see like, oh, I'm doing the same thing more than once, that is prime for something that AI can do for you or for this operating system thing, right? Do treat your knowledge like it's precious, like it's PHI, right? And then start with tier one. I already talked about that. Just start somewhere and then you can go on from there. And you don't have to be technical. I am not a technical person. I am not techie whatsoever. I could not build any of these things. So you don't need to be technical to get started.
I think if there's one thing that people can take away from this webinar today is this idea of structure,
Yeah.
right? And rather than dealing with everything completely piecemeal, like it's a novel issue you're seeing for the first time, even though you've answered it 100 times already, it's never too late to start today. And you can do it as simply as Wendy suggested. First, putting together your run book, tracking that on a spreadsheet or a Google Doc, right? And thinking about all the requests that are coming in. How do you get started? Take the first step, start experimenting. We're here if you have any questions at all. If you're just interested in just finding out high level, what's available and what's possible, please reach out to us. My email is Kathy, Kathy, at streamline.ai. You can also visit our website as well, and find out some more information there. But thank you so much for dialing in. Thank you, Wendy. This has been incredibly, incredibly insightful just to hear a real world example of what AI transformation could look like.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for having me. And
All
thanks to
right.
AHLA.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, AHLA.
Thanks so much, Kathy and Wendy, for your presentation. This concludes today's program. Thank you all for joining. The live webinar will be disconnected now.